Okay, it is me, so I was just waiting if there was a comment. Yes, thank you again. Spasiba, thank you. It's been wonderful to be here and again to be part of this discussion. Following on from the previous speakers and picking up particularly with Sergey and Andre and my two UK colleagues, the sorts of information that we're trying to find from the sort of projects that we're dealing with the wildfire situation incorporates all those things of spatial and temporal scale that we're all struggling with, and I echo everything that all my colleagues and hopefully new friends say. In my own experience and the experience of the sort of projects that we were involved with in the Cheetah region, it goes back again to this idea of Gareth there of accessible sites, of course, but also remote enough, of course, so that we have imagery at a large spatial scale that we require from space, that we see if there's been a change pre and post fire. That poses a historical context, of course, of what imagery is available and processed in what ways. So this all compounds, but we're proving, I think, we can do this. But I think moving forward, we can do this better. That links also, I think, really to what many of the speakers have said, is that these are very important areas that we're dealing with, particularly in Siberia and elsewhere, in terms of the fires. Fire history for some of the sites that we have where we have good imagery is clouded for us, if you pardon the expression, by the fact that because of, I've mentioned this morning, I think, or earlier, that because of often that the sites that we are very interested in have actually been logged away for whatever reason, then we have no tree remains left at all to then reconstruct that fire history by fire scars or whatever, and we have to try to do that as close as we can, and that causes us some problems. But we've only been able to sample a very small set of areas which we needed to keep fairly close to civilization, to settlements. So there is this juxtaposition, there is this trade-off between being able to be remote enough away from human features, such as roads or whatever it might be, to get an image that allows us to do the work. And of course, that does involve lots of logistics as well, and which we weren't able to surmount in the current proposal. But the sorts of work that we've been doing really encourage us to continue to try to develop those techniques that Sergey was mentioning as well. And I would also welcome to talk further with him and any others in the room about how that might go forward in the future, because it's a very exciting area. I mean, this very last summer when we have been in Cheetah, picking up on Gareth's point, I was exposed for the first time really in the possibility of using drones in that region. It has been possible, and somebody did have one with them, and a few flights were taken to prove the concept for us really. Sadly, as our project now begins to its end, so I'm very keen that hopefully we might at those sort of spatial scales as well as the satellite scale, because I think, as Gareth says, there's a lot of information for plant ecologists and ourselves of what makes up that matrix of the vegetation that we're dealing with, not just the trees, of course. I very much take Andre's point again about the fact that pine, such as a system that we have chosen to work in initially, of course, it depends on fire, and it's a very important part of the cycle of succession. We talked a very long time when we began to describe our project about which species and where. And pine has been very interesting to us because of the drought aspects and the tolerance to drought in a warming climate. But it's just one aspect. I mean, larch, of course, spruce, again, very different systems, very challenging, but offer us great opportunities. And finally, I think I would pick up on data, available data, contextual data. That has been something that we have had a real need of. And we have worked with the forest people locally, and there is an enormous amount of anecdotal, of data which are collected for various reasons in the region that we're on, but it's not published, it's not organized. And talking with foresters who have given their time, much of their time, tell us that these data are very valuable, but again, there's a whole project in there, in a sense, potentially with Russian collaborators, one would hope, to really take advantage of those data. I hear of Sergei's point that they are historical in some cases, in some ways, but some areas are coming. And just leave you with the thought, really, as we walked around the cheetah area, which is very, very beautiful, certain landscapes, certain parts of the landscape, of course, are planted with pine by the forestry committee because they have realized, they know that it's not going to regenerate. And my frustration as a scientist is trying to realize that somehow they know this, and they target certain parts of the landscape which they do not believe will regenerate naturally to plant. And I've been still frustrated that I can't get an answer. They know, and I want to know how they know. Thank you.